The morning started like any other on the agricultural colony of New Eden. Sarah Chun was preparing breakfast for her two children while her husband David tended to the hydroponic farms that fed half the Outer Rim colonies. Their modest home sat nestled between rolling hills of genetically modified wheat that swayed in the artificial breeze created by the atmosphere processors. 8-year-old Maya was practicing her violin in the living room, filling the house with the sweet melody of an old earth composition. Her younger brother, 5-year-old Marcus, was building towers with his educational blocks, each one projecting holographic lessons about mathematics and engineering as he stacked them higher. Sarah smiled as she watched them through the kitchen window. After years of traveling between stars as a xenobiologist, she had finally found peace in this quiet corner of human space. The Galactic Council had promised protection to all member species, and the Chun family had built their dreams on that promise. The first sign something was wrong came when the birds stopped singing. The genetically engineered songbirds that helped pollinate the crops fell silent all at once, as if sensing a predator. David looked up from his work, his weathered hands still holding the irrigation scanner. The sky seemed different somehow, though he couldn't quite place what had changed. Then, the shadow fell across New Eden. A massive Krillian warship descended through the atmosphere, its bioorganic hull pulsing with a sickly purple light. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers, but they had never dared attack a human colony before. The Galactic Council's treaties were supposed to prevent such aggression. David ran toward the house, his boots kicking up dust as he sprinted across the fields he had spent years cultivating. He could see Sarah through the window, her face transforming from confusion to terror as she spotted the ship. She grabbed the children, pulling them away from the windows as the first plasma bolts began to rain down on the settlement. The colonial defense grid activated automatically, but it was designed to handle pirates and small raids, not a full Krillian assault vessel. The energy shields flickered and died within seconds, overwhelmed by the alien firepower. Buildings throughout the settlement began to burn, their polymer structures melting like candles under the intense heat. Inside the Chun home, Sarah activated the emergency beacon with trembling fingers. The distress signal would reach the nearest human military outpost in approximately 6 hours. They just had to survive until then. She gathered Maya and Marcus in the reinforced basement shelter, trying to keep her voice calm as she told them it was just a drill, just like they had practiced. David burst through the door, his face covered in ash and sweat. Behind him, the sky burned orange as the Krillian ground forces began their descent. The aliens were humanoid in shape, but stood nearly 3 meters tall, their 4 arms carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Their faces were hidden behind biomasks that filtered the oxygen-rich atmosphere their species found toxic. The family huddled together in the shelter as the sounds of destruction grew closer. Other colonists were screaming outside, begging for mercy in a dozen human languages. The Krillians showed none. This wasn't a raid for resources or slaves. This was extermination. Sarah held her children close, whispering stories about Earth to keep them calm. She told them about blue skies without atmosphere processors, about oceans that stretched beyond the horizon, about the cities that touched the clouds. Maya clutched her violin case, the instrument inside a gift from her grandmother on Earth. Marcus held his favorite toy, a small model starship that his father had helped him build. The shelter door began to glow red. The Krillians had found them. David positioned himself between his family and the door, though he had no weapons, no way to fight beings that could tear through reinforced steel with their bare hands. The metal began to bubble and warp. In those final moments, Sarah thought about all the dreams they would never fulfill. Maya would never perform at the New Soul Symphony. Marcus would never become the engineer he wanted to be. They would never see another sunrise on New Eden, never harvest another crop, never add another room to their house as they had planned. The door exploded inward. The Krillian warriors stood silhouetted against the flames, their weapons trained on the helpless family. One of them spoke in broken galactic standard, its voice distorted by the translation mask. It said something about human expansion, about teaching a lesson, about showing the galaxy that humans were not special, not protected, not safe. Sarah tried to shield her children. David stepped forward, raising his empty hands in a futile gesture of defiance. The plasma bolts came as brilliant flashes of light, so bright that they turned the dim shelter into a moment of pure white. When the light faded, the Chun family lay still, their dreams extinguished along with their lives. But the emergency beacon continued to pulse. In the ruins of the Chun home, beneath the bodies of the family who had simply wanted to farm and raise their children in peace, the signal traveled through subspace. It carried with it the biometric data of the colonists, the visual records of the attack, and the genetic signatures of the killers. 6 hours later, when a human relief force arrived to find only ashes and silence, that beacon would tell them everything they needed to know. The images of the Chun family's last moments would spread through human space like wildfire. Maya's unfinished violin composition would become a rallying cry. Marcus's dream of building starships would inspire a generation, and their parents' sacrifice would not be forgotten. The Krillians had made a fatal error. They had believed the old rumors that humans were soft, that their military was spread too thin across their rapidly expanding territory, that their talk of vengeance was merely posturing. They had thought that attacking a remote agricultural colony would send a message of fear throughout human space. They were wrong. The message humanity received was very different. As the data from New Eden reached Earth and the core worlds, as the images of murdered families spread across the quantum networks, as the list of the dead grew longer with each passing hour, humanity's response began to take shape. In the highest levels of human government, in the secret facilities where the most dangerous weapons were developed, in the shadowy organizations that operated beyond the bounds of galactic law, plans were set in motion. The Krillians had murdered innocents. They had slaughtered children. They had broken the peace. Now, they would learn why humanity had survived every challenge the galaxy had thrown at them. They would learn why human military doctrine included concepts that other species considered barbaric. They would learn about deterrence, about proportional response, and about the human concept of justice. The Chin family's beacon continued to pulse in the ruins of their home, a digital heartbeat in a field of graves. Soon, very soon, that heartbeat would become a war drum. And when the drums of war began to beat, when humanity's answer came, the galaxy would remember why you never, ever murdered a human family. The assassins were already being selected. The weapons were being prepared. The hunt would begin soon. And it would not end until every Krillian involved in the massacre of New Eden understood the price of their actions. Sarah, David, Maya, and Marcus Chun would be avenged. Their names would be remembered. And their killers would learn that human vengeance was patient, precise, and absolutely certain. In the cold depths of space, two figures reviewed the data from New Eden. They had been partners for decades, officially listed as killed in action, their true identities known only to a select few in human intelligence. They were humanity's answer to atrocities, the blade in the darkness, the promise that no crime against humanity would go unanswered. The hunt was about to begin. The orbital station designated as Black Site 7 didn't appear on any official star charts. Hidden in the gravitational shadow of a collapsed star, it served as headquarters for humanity's most secretive military branch, the Revenants. Inside a sterile briefing room, two figures studied holographic projections of the New Eden massacre. The first was a woman known only as Ghost. Her real name had been erased from all databases 15 years ago when she officially died during the Centauri uprising. Her pale skin bore faint scars from countless operations, and her cybernetic left eye glowed softly as it processed tactical data. She had once been a mother herself before the Thurian pirates took that life away from her. Her partner, Wraith, stood motionless as a statue. Where Ghost was lean and quick, Wraith was built like a fortress. His dark skin was laced with subcutaneous armor plating, and his hands could crush stone. He had been a colonial peacekeeper before the Vorthan Syndicate destroyed his precinct and everyone in it. The government had declared him dead along with his colleagues. In a way, they weren't wrong. The man he'd been died that day. Admiral Catherine Reeves entered the room, her uniform bearing no insignia, no indication of rank or nationality. In the Revenants, such distinctions were meaningless. She placed a secure data pad on the table and activated a privacy field that would prevent any form of surveillance. The Galactic Council has condemned the attack. She began without preamble. They've promised to investigate, to hold tribunals, to seek diplomatic solutions. Her voice carried the weight of barely controlled fury. The Krillian government claims it was a rogue faction, that they had no knowledge of the planned assault. Ghost Biological, I met the Admiral's gaze. The beacon data suggests otherwise. The warship bore official Krillian military markings. The ground forces used standard issue equipment. This was sanctioned at the highest levels. Agreed. Wraith spoke, his voice like grinding stone. The attack pattern indicates military precision. They knew exactly where the shelters were, how long our response time would be. They had intelligence. Admiral Reeves nodded grimly. Which brings us to your mission. Official channels will accomplish nothing. The Council will debate and deliberate while the trail grows cold. Humanity needs justice, and we need it to be visible, undeniable, and absolutely clear in its message. She waved her hand, and the hologram shifted to display detailed intelligence on the Krillian command structure. We've identified the key players. Commander Thaxnil led the assault. He's currently being celebrated as a hero on the Krillian homeworld. The operation was authorized by War Minister Krelvek, with support from their military council. Ghost studied the data with professional interest. Security details, movement patterns, defensive capabilities, all in your briefing packets. But there's more. The Admiral's expression darkened further. Intelligence suggests this wasn't an isolated incident. The Krillians are part of a broader coalition. The Vorthins, the Thurians, and at least 3 other species have been meeting in secret. They call themselves the Sovereignty Pact. Their goal is to halt human expansion by any means necessary. Wraith's fists clenched involuntarily. They think we're weak because we follow council laws, because we seek peaceful solutions first. They're about to learn otherwise, the Admiral confirmed. Your primary targets are the new Eden perpetrators, but we need intelligence on this Sovereignty Pact. The Chun family and 800 other colonists deserve justice, but we also need to prevent future attacks. Ghost was already memorizing the tactical data. Rules of engagement? There are none. You're dead, remember? Ghosts don't follow rules. The Admiral's smile was sharp as a blade. However, we need this to send a message. Make it clear this is human retribution. Leave evidence that cannot be disputed. The galaxy needs to understand that attacking human civilians carries a price. She stood to leave, but paused at the door. One more thing. We've received intelligence that the Krillians kept trophies from New Eden. Personal effect from the colonists, including... She paused, her professional composure cracking slightly, including toys from the children they murdered. These items are being displayed in Commander Thaxnil's personal collection. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Ghost's cybernetic eye flared brighter. Wraith's augmented muscles tensed so tightly that the reinforced chair beneath him creaked in protest. Retrieve them, the Admiral ordered. Every last piece. Those families deserve to have something returned for proper burial rites. After she left, the 2 assassins continued their planning in silence. They had worked together for so long that words were often unnecessary. Ghost pulled up architectural schematics of Krillian buildings, while Wraith analyzed patrol patterns and defensive positions. The Krillian homeworld of KRYLL was a fortress. High gravity, toxic atmosphere for humans, and defended by one of the strongest military forces in the galaxy. The planet's 3 moons housed defense platforms capable of destroying entire fleets. The surface was covered in hive cities, each one a maze of tunnels and chambers designed for Krillian physiology. Standard infiltration won't work, Ghost observed. We'll need to go in during their victory festival. Commander Thaxnil will be presenting his trophies to the War Minister in a public ceremony. Wraith nodded slowly. Maximum visibility. They want to show the galaxy they can kill humans without consequence. Then, we show them the consequence. They spent the next 72 hours in preparation. Ghost underwent temporary genetic modification to allow her to breathe Carwell's atmosphere for limited periods. Her already formidable combat skills were enhanced with new neural implants that would allow her to process Krillian combat movements in real time. Wraith submitted to even more extreme modifications. His skeleton was reinforced with experimental alloys that would allow him to function in Carwell's crushing gravity. His muscle density was increased to the theoretical maximum for human physiology. Pain inhibitors were installed that would keep him functional even with critical injuries. They studied every piece of data available on their targets. Commander Thaxnil was a veteran of numerous campaigns, known for his brutality even by Krillian standards. He kept a personal guard of elite warriors and never traveled without heavy security. His residence was a fortified compound in the capital city, protected by shields, automated defenses, and a small army of soldiers. War Minister Krelvek was even better protected, residing in the government complex at the heart of the capital. But during the Victory Festival, both would be exposed, presenting the trophies of New Eden in the grand arena before millions of Krillian citizens. Ghost and Wraith also memorized the faces of every victim from New Eden. 817 humans, ranging from elderly agriculturalists who had spent their lives feeding distant worlds to infants who had drawn only a few breaths before Krillian plasma ended their lives. The Chen family featured prominently in their mental galleries. Maya's unfinished violin composition played in their earpieces during training. Marcus's drawings of starships were etched into their memories. On the fourth day, they departed Black Site 7 aboard a stealth craft, designed to be invisible to all known detection methods. The journey to Krillian space would take 2 weeks, even with their advanced propulsion systems. 2 weeks to plan, to prepare, and to steel themselves for what was to come. As they traveled through the void between stars, Ghost found herself studying the images from New Eden repeatedly. The beacon had captured everything in horrific detail. She saw Sarah Chen's final moments, trying to shield her children even as plasma fire consumed them. She saw David Chun standing defiant and unarmed against impossible odds. She saw children throughout the colony cut down while playing, while learning, while sleeping in their beds. "They thought it would break us," she said quietly during one of their planning sessions. Wraith looked up from the weapons he was maintaining. "They thought wrong. 817 names. I want them to know each one. They will. Before the end, they'll know exactly why this is happening." The stealth craft slipped through Krillian space like a shadow, avoiding patrols and detection grids with practiced ease. As they approached KRYLL itself, the scale of their task became clear. The planet was a fortress world, armed and armored against any conventional attack. But Ghost and Wraith weren't planning a conventional attack. They studied the feeds from the planet's surface. The Victory Festival was approaching, and Commander Thaxnil was making public appearances, boasting of his great victory over the weak humans. He displayed the trophies from New Eden prominently. Maya's violin, Marcus's toy starship, wedding rings, family photos, children's drawings. Each item was presented as proof of Krillian superiority. The Krillian media celebrated him as a hero who had shown the expanding humans their place. The military council praised his decisive action. The general population cheered for more such victories, calling for additional strikes against human colonies. They had no idea what they had awakened. They had no concept of the forces they had set in motion. They believed their strength and military might made them untouchable, that the humans would protest to the Galactic Council and accept whatever meaningless sanctions were imposed. Ghost and Wraith made their final preparations. Their weapons were unlike anything in standard military arsenals, designed specifically for their unique skills and modifications. They carried enough firepower to level city blocks, but more importantly, they carried the weight of 817 lives demanding justice. The Victory Festival was 3 days away. 3 days until Commander Thaxnil and War Minister Krelvek stood before their people to celebrate the murder of innocents. 3 days until they learned that human ghosts were real, and they had come to collect what was owed. In the darkness between stars, two revenants prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson about the price of human blood. The hunt was about to begin in earnest, and it would be broadcast across the known worlds. The Krillians wanted to make a spectacle of their violence. Ghost and Wraith would give them a spectacle they would never forget. The Chin family would have their justice. And through that justice, every species in the galaxy would understand a simple truth. You can negotiate with humanity, trade with humanity, even compete with humanity. But you never, ever murder human families and expect to live to boast about it. The assassins made their final approach to KRYLL, their instruments of vengeance ready, their purpose clear. In 3 days, the killing would begin, and it would not stop until the debt was paid in full. The Krillian capital city of Thaxera pulsed with celebration as dawn broke over its towering spires. Millions of four-armed aliens filled the streets, their purple bioluminescent skin glowing with excitement for the victory festival. Banners depicting the conquest of New Eden hung from every building, and holographic displays showed Commander Thaxnil's heroic assault on repeat. In a maintenance tunnel 3 kilometers beneath the Grand Arena, two figures moved with practiced silence. Ghost's thermoptic camouflage bent light around her form, making her nearly invisible even to enhanced vision. Wraith's massive frame should have made stealth impossible, but his movement was so controlled that he made no sound despite the crushing gravity. They had infiltrated KRYLL by hiding in a cargo shipment of festival supplies, enduring 3 days in cramped containers while their modified bodies adjusted to the hostile environment. The planet's atmosphere, thick with methane and sulfur compounds, would kill an unprotected human in minutes. The gravity, nearly 3 times Earth standard, would crush normal human bones. But Ghost and Wraith were far from normal. Security checkpoint ahead, Ghost whispered through their neural link. Her cybernetic eye penetrated the darkness, mapping the tunnel system in real time. 6 guards, standard patrol pattern. Wraith flexed his fingers, feeling the enhanced tendons respond with lethal precision. Silent or statement? Silent for now. We make our statement above. They moved as one organism, years of partnership creating perfect synchronization. Ghost flowed up the tunnel wall, her enhanced muscles allowing her to cling to surfaces like an arachnid. Wraith became one with the shadows, his bulk disappearing into recesses that seemed too small to hide him. The Krillian guards never knew what hit them. Precise neural strikes rendered them unconscious without triggering any alarms. Ghost and Wraith secured the bodies in maintenance alcoves, ensuring they wouldn't be discovered until well after the festival began. They emerged into a service area beneath the Grand Arena as the morning celebration commenced. Above them, 1 million Krillians had gathered to witness their triumph over humanity. The arena's acoustic design meant that Ghost and Wraith could hear every word of the opening ceremonies. War Minister Krelvek's voice boomed through amplification systems. Today we celebrate not just a victory, but a new era. The humans spread across our galaxy like a plague, claiming worlds and resources as if by divine right. Commander Thaxnil has shown them the truth. They bleed like any other species. They die like any other prey. The crowd's roar shook dust from the tunnel ceiling. Ghost's jaw tightened as she heard children's voices among the cheers. Young Krillians taught to celebrate genocide before they could properly understand it. They reached their first objective, the arena's control center. The facility managed everything from security systems to environmental controls to the massive holographic projectors that would display the trophies from New Eden. It was protected by military-grade encryption and biometric locks keyed to Krillian physiology. Ghost produced a small device from her equipment harness. 2 weeks ago, such security would have been impenetrable. But the data from New Eden's beacon had included detailed scans of the attackers, including their biometric signatures. Human scientists had worked around the clock to create bypass keys based on that data. The locks disengaged with a soft hiss. Inside, 3 technicians monitored banks of displays, preparing for the ceremony's climax. They had perhaps 2 seconds to register the intruders before Wraith's stun rounds rendered them unconscious. Ghost was already at the primary console, her fingers flying across the alien interface. "I'm in," she reported. "Uploading our package now." While she worked, Wraith secured the room and began placing charges at strategic points. Not explosives, but something far more sophisticated, devices that would ensure their message couldn't be suppressed or edited. Above them, Commander Thaxnil took the stage. The Krillian warrior stood 4 meters tall in his ceremonial armor, his 4 arms spread wide to accept the adulation of his people. Behind him, a honor guard carried the trophies from New Eden in ornate cases. Behold, Thaxnil's voice carried across the arena. Proof of human weakness. Their precious artifacts, taken from the cooling bodies of their dead. The cases opened, revealing the stolen items. Maya Chin's violin was displayed prominently, its strings cut as a final insult. Marcus's toy starship had been partially melted, twisted into a grotesque parody of its original form. Wedding rings were strung together like a primitive necklace. Children's drawings were mounted like hunting trophies. In the control room, Ghost's biological eye glistened with unshed tears as she watched the display. Her fingers never stopped moving, uploading terabytes of data into the arena's systems. The real footage from New Eden, the beacon's final transmissions, the names and faces of every single victim. Package uploaded, she confirmed. Ready for Phase 2. Wraith nodded, checking his weapons one final time. They had studied the arena's layout exhaustively. In exactly 3 minutes, Commander Thaxnil would present the trophies to War Minister Krelvek in a ceremonial transfer of honor. Both targets would be on stage, surrounded by guards but exposed to the entire arena. They moved through service corridors with mechanical precision, emerging at a maintenance access point 30 meters from the main stage. The ceremony continued, building to its climax. Thaxnil was describing the assault in graphic detail, boasting about how human children had cried for parents who could no longer protect them. Now, Ghost whispered. They burst from concealment with explosive force. Ghost's thermoptic camouflage dropped as she opened fire with precision shots that dropped the nearest guards before they could react. Wraith charged forward like a human battering ram, his reinforced skeleton allowing him to literally run through a formation of Krillian soldiers. The crowd's cheers turned to screams of confusion. Security forces converged from all directions, but the assassins had planned for this. Smoke grenades filled the air with dense clouds that confused Krillian sensory organs. Flashbang rounds detonated in careful patterns, creating corridors of clear space through which Ghost and Wraith advanced. Commander Thaxnil reached for his weapon, his 4 arms moving with trained speed. He was fast. Ghost was faster. Her monomolecular blade severed his primary arms at the elbow before he could complete his draw. Purple blood sprayed across the stage as the commander stumbled backward, his remaining arms trying desperately to stem the flow. War Minister Krelvek attempted to flee, calling for his guards. Wraith intercepted him with a tackle that shattered the ornate stage flooring. The minister's personal shield flared and died under the impact, overloaded by the sheer kinetic force. Please, Krelvek gasped in Galactic Standard, his arrogance replaced by terror. The Council will pay ransom, credits, territory, whatever you want. Wraith lifted him one-handed, bringing the minister's face close to his own. We want justice. 817 counts. The arena's holographic systems suddenly activated, overriding all safety protocols. Ghost's uploaded package began to play across every display surface. The real footage from New Eden filled the air in 3-dimensional clarity. The Krillian crowd watched in stunned silence as human children played in gardens, as families shared meals, as colonists worked peacefully in their fields. Then came the attack. The arena's acoustic systems carried the screams, the pleas for mercy, the final words of the dying. The crowd saw Maya Chun playing her violin moments before plasma fire consumed her home. They saw Marcus building with his blocks, his laughter turning to terrified cries. They saw parents trying futilely to shield their children, farmers cut down in their fields, medical staff executed while trying to treat the wounded. You celebrated this. Ghost's amplified voice echoed through the arena. She stood over the maimed Commander Thaxnil, her weapon trained on his head. You cheered for the murder of children. You called it victory. The displays shifted to show close-ups of each victim. Names appeared beneath faces. Ages, occupations, dreams. 817 lives reduced to entertainment for a bloodthirsty crowd. Sarah Chun, age 34, xenobiologist, mother of two. Ghost's voice never wavered as she began the litany. David Chun, age 36, agricultural engineer, father of two. Maya Chun, age 8, student violinist. Marcus Chun, age 5, loved building starships. With each name, she fired a single shot into Thaxnell's body. Not fatal wounds, not yet. The commander writhed in agony as plasma burns accumulated across his form, each one precisely placed to maximize pain while prolonging life. Wraith held Krelvek aloft, forcing him to watch as Ghost continued through the list. The War Minister's struggles grew weaker as the names continued, the weight of his crimes crushing him more effectively than Wraith's grip. Security forces surrounded the stage, but didn't advance. The footage playing above them showed their own forces committing atrocities. Some lowered their weapons, unable to reconcile the propaganda they'd been fed with the reality before their eyes. Maria Gonzalez, age 63, teacher, grandmother of 5. Another shot. Thaxnell's remaining arms scrabbled weakly at the stage floor. James Thompson, age 29, medical doctor, volunteer firefighter. The litany continued. The arena fell silent except for Ghost's voice and the sound of plasma impacts. Some Krillians fled, unable to watch. Others stood transfixed, finally, understanding the true nature of their victory. Halfway through the list, Thaxnell's body gave out. Ghost paused, checking his vital signs with clinical detachment. Dead at name 412, she announced. 405 names short of justice. She turned to Krelvek, still suspended in Wraith's grasp. Your turn, Minister. The remaining names were read as Wraith systematically broke every bone in Krelvek's body. The War Minister who had authorized genocide screamed as each name brought new agony. His reinforced skeleton, designed to make him a superior warrior, only prolonged his suffering. Thomas Wright, age 2 months, Ghost read the final name. Born on New Eden, died on New Eden, never saw another world. Krelvek's screams had long since stopped. Wraith dropped the broken body to the stage, checking for life signs. Dead at name 817. Justice served in full. The arena remained silent. A million Krillians struggling to process what they had witnessed. Ghost walked to the display cases containing the New Eden trophies. With reverent care, she began collecting each item. Maya's broken violin, Marcus's melted toy, every ring and photo and memento. These belong to humanity, she announced. They will be returned to honor the dead properly. Wraith joined her, and together they gathered every piece. Security forces still surrounded them, weapons raised, but fingers hesitant on triggers. The two humans stood on a stage littered with purple blood, surrounded by enemies, completely calm. You have a choice. Ghost addressed the crowd, and the cameras broadcasting across Krillian space. This ends here, or it continues. Attack another human colony, murder another human child, and we will return. Not 2 of us, but thousands. We will read every name, collect every debt, until your species learns the price of human blood. She held up a small device, her thumb hovering over the activation switch. This arena is mined with antimatter charges, enough to vaporize this entire district. You have 1 minute to decide. Do we all die here today, or do you let us walk away with our dead? The bluff was perfect. Ghost and Wraith had placed numerous devices throughout the arena, but they were broadcasting equipment and holographic projectors, not bombs. But the Krillians, having just witnessed 2 humans systematically execute their greatest warriors while reciting a death list, weren't willing to test the claim. Security forces began backing away. Officers ordered their troops to stand down. A corridor opened through the crowd as Krillians pressed back, fearful of the 2 blood-soaked humans who had turned their celebration into a funeral. Ghost and Wraith walked slowly through the parted crowd, carrying their precious cargo of recovered memories. No one tried to stop them. The weight of 817 names hung in the air like a curse. They reached their concealed extraction point as sirens began wailing across the capital. The stealth craft's engines were already warming up when they arrived. As they lifted off, Ghost triggered the devices they had left behind. Not explosives, but transmitters that would ensure the footage from New Eden played on every Krillian network for days to come. As the capital shrank beneath them, Wraith finally spoke. Think they got the message. Ghost secured the recovered items carefully, thinking of the families who would at least have something to bury. The smart ones did. The stupid ones will need another lesson. They broke atmosphere as the Krillian defense fleet scrambled to respond. But the stealth craft was already accelerating beyond their reach, carrying 2 ghosts and the memories of the dead back to human space. Behind them, the Victory Festival had become a day of horror for KRYLL. The celebrations were over. The streets were silent. And in homes across the planet, Krillian parents held their own children a little tighter, finally understanding why humans reacted so violently to the murder of innocents. The message had been delivered in blood and names. 817 reasons why attacking human civilians was the last mistake a species could make. The galaxy would remember the Victory Festival, but not as KRYLL had intended. They would remember it as the day humanity's ghosts came to collect. The images from the Krillian Victory Festival spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species with access to the galactic networks watched in stunned disbelief as 2 humans systematically executed Commander Thaxnil and War Minister Krelvek while reciting the names of their victims. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, demanding answers from both humanity and the Krillian Empire. On the human colony of Haven Prime, Admiral Catherine Reeves watched the political chaos unfold from her secure office. The official human government was publicly condemning the assassinations while privately celebrating. The Galactic Council was threatening sanctions. The Krillians were demanding the heads of the assassins. And through it all, the message had been clear. Human lives had a price, and that price would be collected. 3 systems away, Ghost and Wraith sat in debriefing at Black Site 7. The recovered items from New Eden had been carefully cataloged and would be returned to the victims' families. Maya Chin's violin would go to her grandmother on Earth. Marcus's toy starship would be buried with his remains. Every piece would find its way home. The Sovereignty Pact is accelerating their plans. Intelligence Officer Diana Cross reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. The Krillian broadcast has them panicked. They're calling emergency meetings, reinforcing their colonies, and, most importantly, they're scared. Ghost leaned forward, studying the intelligence feeds. They should be. Who's next on their target list? That's the problem. They're reconsidering all offensive operations. The Vorthans want to withdraw from the pact entirely. The Thurians are split between those calling for immediate strikes and those suggesting negotiation. The smaller members are wavering. Good, Wraith rumbled. Fear is a powerful teacher. Admiral Reeves entered the briefing room, her expression grim. We have a complication. The Krillians have put a bounty on your heads. 50 million credits each, dead or alive. Every mercenary, bounty hunter, and opportunist in the galaxy will be looking for you. Ghost smiled thinly. Let them come. We're already dead. Remember? This is serious. The Council is also demanding we turn you over for trial. They're calling it terrorism, a violation of interstellar law. And the murder of 817 civilians? Wraith asked quietly. What are they calling that? The Admiral's silence was answer enough. The Galactic Council operated on realpolitik, not justice. Human expansion threatened established power structures. Some members secretly approved of the New Eden massacre, even if they publicly condemned it. There's more, Cross continued. We've intercepted communications from the Sovereignty Pact. They're planning something big. Not another colony hit, something worse. They're calling it the Final Solution Protocol. The room grew cold. Throughout human history, those words had preceded horror. Details, Ghost demanded. Limited, but we know it involves a biological weapon. They've been studying human physiology, looking for vulnerabilities. The Thurians have expertise in genetic warfare. If they found something, they could wipe out human colonies by the dozens before we develop a counter, the Admiral finished. "We need to know what they're planning and stop it." Ghost and Wraith exchanged glances. Their partnership had survived dozens of missions, each more dangerous than the last. But this felt different. The stakes were higher than personal vengeance now. "Where do we start?" Ghost asked. Cross pulled up a star chart. "The Thurian Research Facility on Kalos 9. It's a black site, officially just a mining operation. But intelligence suggests it's where they're developing the weapon. Heavy security, automated defenses, and a staff of the galaxy's most brilliant and immoral scientists. Infiltration options? Minimal. After your performance on KRYLL, security throughout sovereignty space has tripled. They're using biometric scanners, neural pattern recognition, even quantum signature detectors. Getting in unnoticed would be nearly impossible." Wraith stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the holographic displays. "Then we don't go in unnoticed. We go in loud." "That's suicide," Cross protested. "The facility is protected by a full battalion of Thurian Special Forces. Even with your modifications." "We're not going alone," Ghost interrupted, a plan forming in her mind. "The bounty on our heads. We can use that. Every mercenary in the galaxy wants to find us. So we let them." Admiral Reeves caught on first. "You want to recruit them?" "Not recruit. Manipulate. We leak our location, draw the bounty hunters to Kalos 9. In the chaos of them trying to collect, we infiltrate the facility. The Thurians won't know who to shoot at first. By the time they figure it out, we'll have what we need," Wraith finished. It was audacious, borderline insane, which meant their enemies would never expect it. The next weeks were spent in careful preparation. False intelligence was leaked through criminal networks, suggesting Ghost and Wraith had been spotted near Thurian space. Bounty hunters began to converge, each believing they had exclusive information. Ships from a dozen species gathered in nearby systems, all preparing to claim the massive bounty. Ghost and Wraith, meanwhile, underwent new modifications. Anti-biological warfare implants were installed, experimental technology that would hopefully protect them from whatever the Thurians were developing. New weapons were fabricated, including nanodispersal systems that could analyze and potentially neutralize unknown pathogens. They also studied everything known about Thurian culture and psychology. The species was insectoid in nature, operating on hive mind principles, but with individual consciousness. They valued genetic purity and saw other species as inferior, suitable only for experimentation or elimination. Their scientists were brilliant but utterly without ethics, viewing genocide as simply another research project. As the trap was set, reports came in from across human space. Colony worlds were reinforcing their defenses. Civilian populations were conducting evacuation drills. The military was on high alert. The entire human sphere was holding its breath, waiting for the next blow to fall. On Earth, in the halls of government, debates raged about the appropriate response. Some called for preemptive strikes against all Sovereignty Pact members. Others urged diplomacy, seeking to fracture the alliance through negotiation. And, in the shadows, the Revenants prepared for war. The night before the mission, Ghost found herself in the Memorial Hall of Black Site 7. The walls were covered with names and photos of human victims from across the galaxy. Not just New Eden, but every colony raid, every pirate attack, every act of violence against human civilians that had gone unanswered through official channels. She stopped before the Chun family's memorial. Their photos showed them happy, alive, full of dreams that would never be realized. Maya's violin composition played softly in the background, finally, completed by AI analysis of her partial work. "We can't bring them back," Wraith said softly, joining her in contemplation. "No, but we can make sure it doesn't happen again. The cost might be our lives this time. Real death, not the official kind." Ghost turned to her partner, seeing the same resolve in his eyes that had carried them through impossible missions. "Then we make it count. Every life we save makes theirs meaningful." They stood in silence, two weapons forged from loss and aimed at preventing future tragedy. Tomorrow they would walk into almost certain death, using themselves as bait to prevent genocide. It was what they were made for, what they had chosen when they died, and were reborn as humanity's vengeance. The next morning, they departed for Kalos 9. The bounty hunters were already gathering, ships from every corner of the galaxy converging on the prize. None of them knew they were about to become pawns in a larger game. As their stealth craft entered Thurian space, alarms began sounding across the sector. Multiple ships were detected approaching Kalos 9, all refusing to respond to challenges. The Thurian defense forces scrambled to respond, unsure if they faced an invasion or something else entirely. In the chaos that followed, two ghosts would slip through the cracks. They would find what threatened humanity and stop it, or die in the attempt. Either way, the message would be clear. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. They would fight with honor when possible, with savagery when necessary, and with ghosts when all else failed. The final solution protocol would be discovered and destroyed. The scientists who created it would face justice, and the galaxy would learn another lesson about threatening human lives. But first, Ghost and Wraith had to survive the deadliest gambit of their careers. They were flying into a trap of their own making, betting their lives that chaos could be shaped into opportunity. The bounty hunters thought they were hunting two humans. The Thurians thought they were defending a secret facility. Both were wrong. They were all players in a game designed by creatures who had already died once, and feared nothing but the extinction of their species. The real hunt was about to begin, and its outcome would determine the fate of every human colony among the stars. As Kalos 9 appeared on their screens, a dark world orbiting a dying star, Ghost performed final weapons checks while Wraith monitored the converging bounty hunters. Dozens of ships were approaching from different vectors, all racing to be the first to claim the prize. Phase 1 complete, Ghost reported. The hunters have taken the bait. Phase 2 initiating. Wraith confirmed, sending a coded signal that would trigger simultaneous attacks by the most aggressive bounty hunters. Estimated time until total chaos, 15 minutes. They strapped in for final approach, two revenants preparing to walk into hell itself. Behind them, the memory of 817 names drove them forward. Ahead, the fate of millions hung in the balance. The battle for Kalos 9 was about to begin, and with it, the next chapter in humanity's refusal to become victims in their own story. The space above Kalos 9 erupted into absolute mayhem. 47 ships carrying bounty hunters from across the galaxy converged simultaneously, each crew believing they had exclusive intelligence on their target's location. The Thurian defense fleet, caught completely off guard, opened fire indiscriminately as warning shots turned into a full-scale battle. Ghost and Wraith stealth craft dove through the chaos, using larger vessels as shields while debris and plasma fire filled the void. A Vorthan bounty hunter ship exploded to their starboard, victim of Thurian defensive platforms. Two Krillian mercenary vessels collided while trying to claim the same approach vector. The carefully orchestrated pandemonium was working perfectly. Defense grid is overwhelmed, Wraith reported, his hands steady on the controls despite the violence surrounding them. They're calling in reinforcements from 3 systems away. We have maybe 30 minutes before real military assets arrive. More than enough, Ghost replied, already sealing her combat suit. The facility's schematics glowed on her display, memorized down to the ventilation duct specifications. Take us in low, beneath their sensor floor. Their craft skimmed Kalos 9's atmosphere, hull glowing from friction as Wraith pushed their engines to the limit. Above them, the battle intensified. Some bounty hunters had figured out they'd been duped and were trying to flee. Others, committed to the fight, pressed their attack on Thurian positions. A few opportunists had begun raiding the mining operations, adding to the confusion. The research facility appeared ahead, a fortress of black metal built into a mountain range. Its shields flickered under stray fire from the orbital battle, but the ground defenses remained fully operational. Automated turrets tracked their approach, preparing to turn the stealth craft into vapor. Hold on, Wraith warned, then executed a maneuver that should have been impossible. The craft rolled, dove, and accelerated simultaneously, threading between defensive fire with millimeter precision. They punched through the shield barrier during a fluctuation caused by orbital debris impact, alarms screaming as systems overloaded. They crashed hard, the craft's belly grinding across rocky terrain before coming to rest against the facility's outer wall. Ghost was moving before the debris settled, shaped charges already in hand. The explosion opened a hole large enough for both assassins to enter, and they plunged into the enemy's stronghold. The interior was a maze of corridors designed for Thurian physiology, with ceiling heights that forced Wraith to crouch and atmospheric processors pumping air thick with pheromone markers. Their modified respiratory systems filtered the alien chemicals, but Ghost could feel them trying to trigger fear responses in her nervous system. Laboratory complex is 3 levels down, she subvocalized through their comlink. Security teams converging on our position. They moved with lethal efficiency. The first Thurian security squad rounded the corner into a kill box, Wraith's heavy plasma cannon turning their chitinous armor into superheated fragments. Ghost flowed past him, her monomolecular blades singing through the air as she carved through reinforcements. An alarm began wailing, different from the breach warnings. Ghost's blood ran cold as she recognized the pattern from intelligence briefings. Biological contamination protocol. The Thurians were preparing to release their weapon rather than let it be captured. Double time, she ordered, breaking into a full sprint. Her enhanced muscles propelled her through corridors at speeds that blurred her form to watching security cameras. Wraith followed, his heavier frame smashing through obstacles rather than dodging them. They descended through the facility like a force of nature. Thurian soldiers, for all their training and equipment, weren't prepared for enemies who moved too fast to target, who shrugged off wounds that would cripple normal humans, who killed with the efficiency of machines but the creativity of vengeful spirits. The laboratory level was in chaos when they arrived. Scientists scurried between workstations, desperately trying to complete final preparations. At the center of the complex, visible through reinforced transparent aluminum, was their masterpiece, a crystalline container holding a microscopic weapon designed to target human DNA specifically. "Destroy it," a Thurian in elaborate robes commanded, his multiple arms gesturing frantically. The prototype must not fall into human hands. Ghost put a plasma bolt through his thorax before he could finish the order. Scientists scattered, some fleeing, others trying to complete their leader's final command. Wraith waded through them like a thresher through wheat, non-lethal strikes rendering them unconscious. They needed survivors for interrogation. At the primary console, Ghost's fingers flew across alien interfaces. The Thurians' arrogance worked in humanity's favor. Their systems contained detailed notes, confident that no other species could understand their advanced biological engineering. Her cybernetic implants processed terabytes of data, storing everything for analysis. "Got it," she breathed. Full technical specifications, deployment plans, antidote formulas, everything. They were 2 weeks from mass production. "Company incoming," Wraith warned. Through the laboratory's entrance, a full company of Thurian special forces was establishing positions. These weren't regular security. These were the elite, veterans of a dozen campaigns, equipped with armor that could stop most conventional weapons. Ghost finished her download and turned to the prototype, the weapon that could have ended humanity's expansion, possibly their entire species, sat innocuous in its containment field. She raised her weapon, then paused. "Wait," she told Wraith. "I have a better idea." Her fingers danced across the console again, accessing the weapon's genetic targeting parameters. With surgical precision, she began altering the code. Where it had been designed to attack human DNA, she inverted the sequence. The weapon would now target Thurian genetic markers exclusively. Poetic justice? Wraith asked, understanding immediately. Insurance policy. They'll have to destroy it themselves now, or risk their own extinction. The special forces began their assault. The laboratory became a killing ground as plasma fire and kinetic rounds filled the air. Ghost and Wraith took cover behind overturned equipment, returning fire with deadly accuracy. But they were outnumbered 50-1, and their ammunition wouldn't last forever. Extraction? Wraith asked, dropping another Thurian with a headshot. Working on it. Ghost accessed the facility's communications array, sending a burst transmission to their stealth craft's automated systems. The response was immediate. Craft destroyed, no extraction available. They were trapped, surrounded by enemies, with reinforcements minutes away. Any normal military unit would have surrendered or prepared for a last stand. But Ghost and Wraith weren't military. They were revenants, and they had one last card to play. Ghost activated her suit's emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention all bounty hunters in Kalos, 9 space. The humans you seek are in the Thurian Research Facility, Laboratory Level 3. First crew to reach us claims the bounty. Authentication code follows. The effect was immediate. Every surviving bounty hunter ship redirected toward the facility. Some attempted combat landings. Others simply crashed their vessels into the structure, hoping to survive long enough to claim their prize. Incoming chaos in 60 seconds, Ghost announced. Ready. Wraith's grin was feral. Always. The facility shook as the first ship impacted. Explosions rippled through upper levels as bounty hunters breached from multiple directions. The Thurian Special Forces, caught between defending against the assassins and the new invaders, split their attention fatally. Ghost and Wraith erupted from cover, advancing through the confused Thurian lines. They weren't trying to fight everyone, just punch through to reach the surface. Bodies fell in their wake, some Thurian, some bounty hunters who made the mistake of getting too close. They emerged into Kalos 9's toxic atmosphere as the facility began to collapse behind them. The prototype weapon was buried under tons of rubble, its altered genetics making it worthless to its creators. The research data was secured in Ghost's implants, ready for human scientists to develop countermeasures. A Krillian bounty ship swooped low, its crew preparing to fire. Ghost raised her hand, showing a small device. Dead man's switch. E.T., you all die. Back off. The ship hesitated, then peeled away. Other bounty hunters, seeing the standoff, kept their distance. They wanted the credits, but not at the cost of their lives. In the distance, Thurian military reinforcements were finally arriving. Warships descended through the atmosphere, fighters screaming overhead. The window for escape was closing rapidly. Then, impossibly, salvation appeared. A human stealth craft, larger than their destroyed vessel, descended from the chaos above. Its bay doors opened, revealing a familiar figure. Someone call for a ride? Admiral Reeves asked, manning the craft's defensive guns personally. Ghost and Wraith didn't question the miracle. They sprinted for the craft as plasma fire erupted around them. Bounty hunters, realizing their prize was escaping, opened fire. Thurian forces, seeing their targets about to flee, did the same. They made it barely. Ghost took a grazing hit that burned through her armor. Wraith's leg was peppered with shrapnel. But they reached the craft, diving through the doors as Reeves laid down, covering fire. The craft rocketed upward, its advanced engines pushing them toward escape velocity. Behind them, Kalos 9 burned. The facility was gone, the weapon destroyed, the research in human hands. But the cost had been high. Ow! Ghost asked as medical systems worked to stabilize their wounds. You didn't think we'd let our best assets go unsupported, did you? Reeves replied, We've been shadowing you since you left. When your craft went down, we moved in. They broke atmosphere into a scene of continuing carnage. The orbital battle had drawn in system patrol craft, merchant vessels caught in the crossfire, and even a Galactic Council observer ship trying to restore order. It was chaos on a scale rarely seen in civilized space. The Council will condemn us for this, Wraith observed. Let them, Reeves said harshly. We just stopped a genocide. If they want to complain about property damage, they can explain why they didn't stop the weapons development themselves. The stealth craft engaged its jump drive, leaving the burning system behind. As they entered hyperspace, Ghost allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Chun family's murders had led to this. Their sacrifice had prevented the deaths of billions. Back in human space, the intelligence from Kalos 9 spread through military channels. The weapon specifications allowed human scientists to develop not just countermeasures, but vaccines, The Sovereignty Pact's final solution had become their greatest failure. On the Thurian homeworld, panic spread as they realized their weapon had been turned against them. Emergency research began on countermeasures to their own creation. Resources meant for war were redirected to survival. The Vorthans, seeing the catastrophic failure, formally withdrew from the Sovereignty Pact. Others followed suit. The alliance crumbled as species realized the cost of challenging humanity had grown too high. The New Eden massacre, meant to halt human expansion, had instead galvanized it. Ghost and Wraith returned to Black Site 7 for medical treatment and debriefing. Their injuries would heal, their modifications would be updated, and they would be ready for the next mission. Because it would always be a next mission. The galaxy was vast, and threats to humanity would continue to emerge. But for now, they had one. The immediate threat was neutralized. The message had been sent and received across known space. Humanity would not be victims. They would protect their own with diplomacy when possible, with force when necessary, and with ghosts when all else failed. In the Memorial Hall, 2 new names were added to those who had given their lives for humanity's survival. Not Ghost and Wraith, for they still lived, but the bounty hunters who had died in the chaos, unwitting pawns but human nonetheless. Every life mattered. Every sacrifice was remembered. The Chen family's photos remained on the wall, but now they were joined by images from colonies that would survive because of the weapon that was stopped. Children who would grow up, families that would remain whole, dreams that would be realized. Maya's violin composition played through the station, a melody of loss transformed into hope. Marcus's dream of building starships lived on in the next generation of engineers. Their parents' sacrifice had meaning beyond their own tragedy. And in the shadows between stars, 2 ghosts prepared for whatever came next. They were humanity's vengeance, but also its shield. They were the price of human blood made manifest, the promise that no atrocity would go unanswered. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Those who hadn't would learn it soon, because Ghost and Wraith were not unique. They were merely the first of many who had died and been reborn in humanity's service. An army of revenants waiting in the darkness, ready to emerge when innocent blood was spilled. The war was not over. It might never be truly over, but humanity had proven they would not go gently into that good night. They would rage against the dying of the light, and their rage had names and faces and skills that turned nightmares into reality for those who threatened human lives. In the end, the Chun family was avenged. 817 names had been spoken. Justice had been served. And the galaxy would remember why human families should never be murdered. The assassin duo had completed their mission. But their story was far from over. Somewhere among the stars, new threats were emerging. New innocence would need protection. New vengeance would need to be delivered. Ghost and Wraith would be ready. They were humanity's promise made flesh. We protect our own. We avenge our fallen, and we never, ever forget. The hunt continued. It would always continue, because that's what it meant to be human in a galaxy that thought compassion was weakness and mercy was foolishness. Humanity would teach them otherwise, one name at a time, one life at a time, until the lesson was finally learned. Never murder a human family. The price is higher than any species can afford to pay.